Hi everyone, I'm Rob Taylor. I manage the REDCap development team here at Vanderbilt University Medical Center. Thanks for joining us today, and I'm so happy to be a part of REDCapCon Hispano 2024 yet again this year. I hope you're enjoying it so far. So I'll be talking today about the REDCap software, talking about what's new and what's next in the software. All right. So first off, I like to go back just a little bit into the past to reminisce about some of the features that my team and I have added over the past year. And then we'll talk about some of the exciting new features that we're working on here in the coming months and for later this year. So let's jump back a little bit. Some of you may have used some of these features already, but if not, then it's always good to review them. One of the features we've added in the past year is the ability to utilize date and date time fields in a different way, where now you can use these new methods. It's called year, month, and day method for obtaining date components from date or date time fields. This has been a difficult thing in the past, where if you need to just get the date portion, like the year or the month or the day from a date or a date time, maybe you need to use that inside branching logic or maybe inside a calculation, whatever the case may be, like you see in these examples here. It can be very useful to use that. Sometimes people have tried to use some of the text string functions with dates, and those don't always work well. So now you can utilize these, and it makes it a lot easier if you need to obtain that date or the month or the day here in logic or calculations. And the same we have piping parameters also. So if you're not using logic or calculations, but you're just using just regular piping inside of like piping a field label or piping some text inside an email, you can utilize this using the colon year, colon month, or colon day. Just append that onto the field itself, and it will append only that portion of the date or date time. So it's really, really helpful in a lot of cases where you need just a part of that date. A really big feature we added in the past year is the background data import for large data uploads. It can be used for small data uploads as well, but it's really, really useful for the large data uploads. Some of you may have experienced, frustration maybe around the data import tool. It's been around for a long, long time. I think almost 17 years now we've had the data import tool. And in the beginning, it could handle a lot of data, what we considered a lot of data back then. But back then, I would call a project with 500 records to be large. And nowadays, I would call a project with 500,000 records to be large. So people are definitely using REDCap more, putting more and more data into their projects. And as they're doing that, they're hitting certain limits. So if you're trying to import large amounts of data into a project, it just might not work. You might get that dreaded error message whenever it doesn't work, or maybe it times out. But you don't have to worry about that anymore with the background data import, because now you can upload your large file. Maybe you have thousands of, or tens of thousands, or hundreds of thousands of records in that file. You can upload it, and you just set it and forget it, and you just wait, and it will send you an email whenever it has finished. So you don't have to sit there in real time anymore. It'll import your data one at a time. It'll do it using a background cron job process. And whenever it's done, it'll email you. If there's any errors at all, it will let you know. It'll display it here on this dashboard on the data import tool page. So you can see, how long it took, how many records were imported, how many errors. You can download the records that would not import due to errors, and you can see the error messages. So that way you can easily fix those and re-import them to get all your data in. But it's really nice. You can upload as much data as you want to. You might still hit limits if you're trying to import super massive amounts of data, but it's much better than it was in the past. And I think a lot of people are really utilizing this great feature nowadays. So definitely encourage you to do so. We also added folders for project dashboards. Now we've got a lot of different types of folders in REDCap. We've got project folders, report folders, and then we added folders for project dashboards. So folders for project dashboards, you might have used project dashboards there. They're really great. They're really just almost like generic web pages in a way, where you can just put static content or dynamic content. But you might have a lot of those. Some people have a lot of dashboards in their projects, and sometimes it can make your left-hand menu very long. It can make the REDCap pages very long. So to deal with that, if you have a lot of dashboards, you can now utilize these project dashboard folders, very similar to the report folders and project folders. Build your folders. You can assign the dashboards to the folders. You can assign individual dashboards to multiple folders if you want to. And you can collapse them. They'll show up there on the left-hand menu. You can collapse them or open them as much as you want to get to the dashboards that you need to, and without it taking up so much space. So it gives you just a little bit more organization there in your project. So it's a really nice feature. Another feature that we added into REDCap is the ability to connect to multiple EHRs using CDIS. That's the Clinical Data Interoperability Services feature in REDCap. So this feature has been around for quite a while. It's existed probably for 15 years in some form, originally with DTS, the Data Transfer Services, and then DDP, Dynamic Data Pool. And now it exists as CDIS, where you can connect using those FHIR web services that's FHIR, to connect to your local electronic health record system. So we've had this feature around for, gosh, I think maybe 5 years at least, but now, as of this past year, you can connect it, REDCap, to multiple EHRs. So if you have Epic or Cerner or another electronic health record system, you can now connect multiple systems there. Maybe it's a test system or a proof of concept. Maybe it's a prod production system, or maybe you have just different versions, like different healthcare institutions might have different systems at different hospitals or in different regions, and you need to connect them all to the same REDCap. So that hasn't been possible until now, and now you can set it up this way. So within a given project, you can assign that project to a specific EHR system that you've defined. Each one is going to have its own like client ID and client secret and custom name so that you can tell them apart. So each project will still point to a single EHR system, but this will allow you to have like multiple connectors to those multiple EHR systems if you want to use them. So it's an optional thing, but I think a lot of people are really utilizing it because it's really necessary for a lot of people with kind of a complex health management system and electronic health record system there at their institution. So check out that feature. My team has also added many more features. It's hard to actually talk about them all because there's been so many features added over the past year. Here's just a list of some of the minor ones we've added that maybe aren't super big features. Like we've added new action tags and smart variables, inline preview, many MyCap-based action tags and smart variables. We've also added the ability to have MyCap for longitudinal projects. That's a fairly new feature as well. Before you couldn't use MyCap for longitudinal projects or repeating instruments, and now you can do that as well. It's another MyCap feature. We've added many special functions such as replace text, concat WS, mod, exponential. There are many other CDIS features. You can now pull in new types of data, lots of different data types than you could before. We started off very basic with demography and labs and vitals, and now we've opened it up to all kinds of new data that you can pull from your EHR system using CDIS. Lots of multi-language management enhancements. Multi-language management has been around since version 12, so 2 or 3 years now, and it's really, really useful and very popular. But we've added more features there to allow people to just utilize it in better ways, like especially with having system level user interface languages that are set in the control center, and you can subscribe to those. So it makes it a little bit easier management wise when you're dealing with a lot of projects using user interface translations, and many more features that I wish I had more time to talk about here, but you have to check those out there on your own. We also added many performance improvements in REDCap, lots of caching features, and we added a read replica feature, so you can like double the capacity of your database if you need that. We added what we call multiple REDCap data tables. So now different projects can be assigned to different tables. So it's another way of scaling REDCap in a great way to make it just faster and better and more stable over time. So I'm really proud of my team for working on those features so that we can think about, REDCap long term and not have to worry about, is REDCap going to be okay in 5 or 10 years or 15 years once we get, that much more data being stored into REDCap year after year. And many more features. Yeah, like I said, I wish I had more time to talk about all the features, but you have to check those out maybe on the changelog on REDCap community. But moving on to the exciting things that we're going to be adding here in future months, there are several things that I want to talk about, one of which I mentioned the background data import feature. So that currently is available for the user interface, but not yet for the API. So if you're dealing with the API, you still have to import data to REDCap in real time. So if you have like 1,000 or 100,000 records, it's going to still have to do that in real time. So you have to, that process is, you're going to have to wait for that. Of course, it's a system-to-system thing with the API, but it still takes a while. So this will be a phase 2 of the background data import, where we're going to be utilizing the API, so you can set a specific API flag in your API request, and then it will tell it, hey, don't import this in real time, but import it, and then it'll send an email when it's done importing it gradually through that background cron job process. So I think that'll be really useful and utilized by a lot of people. Also, some other exciting things that we're going to be working on are it's the integration of artificial intelligence into REDCap. So this will be really interesting features to help people get their job done more efficiently and to help users in a variety of different ways. So we're just thinking about how can we leverage AI to improve REDCap. Here's just a handful of some of the things we've thought about so far. There's many more things in addition to this, but thinking about how we can utilize AI, like maybe connect REDCap to ChatGPT, to be utilized with helping you write calculations and logic. Sometimes people might have issues with writing REDCap logic in different ways, so you can tell it, hey, can I get a BMI calculation, and here are my height and weight field names there. You can use it to summarize text data. That's another great thing. If you have those big comment fields, if you have 1,000 people with a bunch of comment fields, it's really hard to process all that. It's easy to process discrete data points that can be analyzed, like numerical data, multiple choice fields and things like that. But when you have a lot of text data, how can you summarize that? How can you pull out some of those big concepts that are kind of common and prioritize those in sort of a list? So AI can really do that very quickly, so that you can look at that one comment field and know, okay, here was the main concepts and the main takeaways for that field from your participants or from the records. Can also help with providing suggestions for composing survey invitations. You can tell REDCap, hey, I need to write a 3-page email that's aimed at recruiting participants for this diabetes study, for instance. And it can maybe compose a nice little quick email for you there. Maybe you don't want to use that as your final draft, but it's a nice starting point and can save you a lot of time just to get going. maybe suggestions for adding relevant instruments from the REDCap shared library. Could do that, or maybe even suggestions for improving the readability of surveys. If you want to tell it, hey, can you rewrite all of my survey questions down to maybe like a 9th grade level or a 5th grade reading level or something like that. And there's many, many other ideas. This is just the tip of the iceberg for how we can leverage AI and REDCap just to make things a little bit easier, more efficient, and faster so that you can get your job done in a much better way. Another feature we're working on is to improve participant compensation using REDCap. So many people have been dealing with this for a long, long time in the world of clinical research and clinical trials. If you have participants that are part of your study, part of your trial, then you often need to compensate them in some way. And a lot of people do that using like gift cards and other things similar to that. But that can be a bit of a time-consuming thing, trying to kind of order the gift cards and how do you distribute them? How do you get them to the person? How can they choose which one they want and all those things? We're trying to make it a lot more streamlined and easier using a gift card API. So it's a web services API with a Tango card. It's a third-party service that we're collaborating with so that REDCap can connect to it. It'll be similar to other third-party services in REDCap like Mocio and Twilio, where someone can go and get their account and they get an API token. And then, they put money inside their account. And once they have the money in there and they have their API token, they can connect that to REDCap, put that inside REDCap, and REDCap can communicate with your Tango account. So that way you can go through, you'll be able to build logic so you can kind of target different participants to see, have they met certain criteria, for being awarded the gift card. And if they have, there will be like a button in there that a user can click so that it can send them an email and say, hey, here's your link to receive your compensation, your reward for being a part of our clinical study. Thank you. And that way they can go there and they can, get their gift card, whether it be electronically or physically. And it just makes it a lot easier all around. So there'll be lots of different tools. Right here, we're just showing some beta testing stuff we've been using with an external module, but right now we're integrating it directly into REDCap and hope to push this out here in the next few months, actually. So it's very exciting stuff. And hopefully it'll really improve things for a lot of people that have to deal with that participant compensation. And another exciting thing that we're going to be working on here, and this will probably be coming out maybe very soon, if not maybe already be out by the time that you're watching this video, perhaps. But this is dealing with what we're calling like eConsent 2.0. Really, it's just more features that we're adding to the eConsent framework in REDCap. And this is going to allow people to be able to do like multi-person, multi-signature eConsent and much more. So we're building features. So it'll be a bit of a different user interface in the future. So no longer will the eConsent framework be a part of the survey settings feature in REDCap, but it will have its own dedicated page. And here you can turn on the eConsent framework for any given survey, just like you can now. And there's lots of different things you can do with setting the version number, and you'll have more flexibility around, do you want to save it to the file repository or do you want to save it to a specific field or both of those? You can set up all kinds of other little features as well, connected together with these things we're calling PDF snapshots. PDF snapshots are sort of something that eConsent utilizes already. A PDF snapshot is really just a snapshot, a saved PDF of that record, and like right now, when you complete the eConsent process, it stores that PDF snapshot in the file repository. But here, we'll still have that functionality. Like nothing will change on the participant side as far as the eConsent, but the setup here will be a bit different. And you can actually set up as many PDF snapshots as you want to. So this is an additive thing. This is a new feature we're adding. So not just changing the interface, so you can actually set up, a survey completion trigger, so it can store, maybe it's the current survey response, or maybe it's multiple instruments worth of data, or maybe it's an entire record. Maybe you want to store all the instruments, for a record, being triggered by a survey completion in a specific field or in the file repository. You can add as many of these trigger snapshots as you want to. You can even add this new thing called logic-based triggers. So logic-based triggers, you can kind of think of it as like, these are like alerts. Like if you built an alert in REDCap, you can set the logic. And whenever that logic becomes true, if somebody saves some data or imports some data, then it will, the alert will send that email to the person. But here, it's very similar, but whenever the logic becomes true, it will not send an email. It's actually saving a PDF. So it's saving that PDF snapshot wherever you tell it to. And you can set it there to whatever logic you want to. You can be pretty complex with that. So it's really giving you a lot of flexibility to store these PDF snapshots in a variety of ways and decide what data you want inside the snapshot and when it should be triggered and so forth. So it's really, really cool. And here's a good example of how you might want to utilize this with, say, the multi-signature e-consent stuff, is that you will be able to, here's a hypothetical scenario. You have somebody that comes in, a participant, they complete the e-consent survey, they consent, and that triggers an email that goes out to, let's say, a study coordinator. And the study coordinator gets an email and says, okay, now it's time for you to apply your signature as well. So they click a link in that email. Maybe it's an alert that was built around that with that logic. And they click that link and they go and apply their signature on a different instrument in REDCap. And whenever they do that, that triggers a PDF snapshot to save that into a specific file upload field. And that way, when it stores it there, now you've got the participant signature and the study coordinator signature together in the same PDF stored in a file upload field. And then you could have that, I know it's a long chain of events, that could trigger an alert. And the alert would go back and email the original participant and maybe even attach that PDF of both signatures there. So now you have the participants, signed consent form, and they've got the study coordinator's signature there together, because maybe that's necessary to have all those signatures in one document, and now everybody has a copy of that. So that is just one example. There's probably a million different examples of how you can utilize this, in a variety of ways for e-consent or for just doing a lot of other things. But I think it's really going to be helpful for a lot of people to have this kind of new consent stuff here. And there's lots of other features, like I haven't even got a chance to talk about the consent forms and the dynamic consent forms that we're going to have there. So they will be context sensitive. So if you're viewing a consent form in a certain language or as part of a specific data access group, you can have it where REDCap will dynamically change the consent form based upon those particular things, like the languages in the data access group. So much more to talk about there, but we don't have enough time today to really explore that, but hopefully this will be coming out very soon and you can take a look at it and actually test it out and get comfortable with it yourself. So it's going to be a very, very powerful feature here with the new e-consent framework and the PDF snapshots. And that's it for me. Thanks again for joining us here. And thanks for having me. And it's good to see you all again. And maybe I'll see you next year. Thanks.